Hello, everyone. My name is Ed. I am a employee here at Keyline USA. I'm one of their tech guys, and I'm here to kind of show everyone a demonstration on the Gymkana 994. Before we get started, I just wanted to say on behalf of Keyline USA, I hope everyone is staying safe in these troubling times. Also, an interesting point, we have the shield on here, as you can see, and if we close it, we get this wonderful glare. So we decided that we're going to operate the machine without the shield. That way, you can kind of see everything that goes on a lot easier. And it's not so glary, I guess, on your cameras. Another side note, too, is the main menu, the screen, I should say, that comes with the 994. I'm going to have it show it a couple of times. I'm not going to focus on it because the cameras are having trouble picking up the LED. So if you do have questions, feel free to use that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and type it in. I can see the Q&A. I cannot see the chat. It flashes too quick, so we decided to use the Q&A. In case you see something, I'll probably answer any questions more so towards the end. That way I can kind of scroll and make sure that I address as many questions as possible. But for now, just a little bit about the machine right at the get-go. Let me zoom in real quick. Here we are. So when you first get the machine, you get this lovely jaw called the U jaw. The U jaw, the U stands for universal. It cuts, I want to say, about 95% of automotive keys. That's kind of the cool part about the Gymkana 994 is how universal it is. You don't have to change out the cutters or the tracers or the jaws. This jaw will cut primarily most keys on it, and it's very user-friendly. You have your tracer knob that adjusts the tracer height for up and down Z axis. To change out the U jaw, it is very, very easy. You see this set screw down here? This set screw is what holds in the U jaw. So if I put in the Allen wrench and just give it one complete turn, I can slide that U jaw out and slide in the V jaw. The machine will actually tell you when to change out the jaws depending on the keys. But just know that the V jaw just focuses on the Volkswagen, the Audi, and those tricky four-sided cut keys. And the machine will tell you. It's pretty people usable. So I'm just going to install this guy real quick back in. All right. So let's go. Let's go into see the main menu here. I'm just going to show it real quick, and you can see what I'm talking about when I say that it's kind of hard to see based on the lighting and everything. But this is your main menu on the Gymkana 994. We have favorites, vehicles, codes, key blanks, archives, setups, search, and personal computer. I will say that if you want to see like an in-depth calibration video, we do have a YouTube video that demonstrates that. Let's zoom in. Great shots. It shows a lot better than what I would show here on this camera. But let me go through and show you the basic function. Let's say we get a Honda key. As you can see right here, a Honda key. We don't know what the key code is. Let's go through and try to decode the key. There's several ways to go about this. I'm going to show you how to do it via vehicles. So I would go to vehicles, and then I would select Honda, Accord, and then select the master code series or the year range for that vehicle. Hit next. And then you have 4 options when you select a certain vehicle. What you have here is you have the decode, the code, direct, and modify. Decode is what we're going to be selecting. But if you know the code, you can always type in the code via this option. Direct is also another fun one, and so is modify. But let's start with decode. It shows you a profile of where to put the key. As you can see, it says U0. That's more of a suggestion, the best way that I can put it. It will measure where the key is at first and foremost. So if you're a little ahead or behind of that line, it will tell you. But as long as all the cuts are visible on the machine or on the jaw where it goes to measure, it will continue to complete the process. So I'm going to insert this key. I'm going to have it. It looks like I just estimated a little behind the line. I know it's a little difficult to see, but take my word for it, I guess. And to decode the key, once you have the key in there and you close the jaw or close the shield, make sure that jaw on that key is tight. You can hit next. And now the machine is going to go, and with the tracer, it's going to measure to make sure that you have the right jaw installed. And it's going to make sure now that the tracer and the cutter are at the correct height. And now it's going to measure to see where the key is located on the screen, or in the jaw. Now it's going to actually gauge the cuts on the key. Always make sure that your cuts are clean. Because how the tracer works is it sends an electrical charge to the tracer, and when it makes metal on metal contact, it knows when to stop. But after it is done decoding, gives you decode complete. It gives you the cuts and everything, as you can see on the screen. And the cool tidbit I've learned is in this top right section here, you have a box that says code. Make sure that you have a code above that code series. If you're dealing with a very worn key, it'll give you the cuts that it read, but it's not going to show a code in that code box. And that way we know that what the machine measured doesn't fit any key for that vehicle. So after we decode the key, we are now going to hopefully cut the key. So you're going to hit next on that screen. It's going to tell you to put that key or that blank key in the same position you did to decode the key. And in fact, I am going to install this key blank a little behind where I should. And it'll still, as long as I'm in as long as I'm in where all the cuts are past where you insert the key, it'll still cut the key. But if it's not far enough in, it won't, and it'll tell you, it'll be like, hey, insert the key more. So all you have to do is hit cut, and it's going to go through the same process. It's going to go and make sure that the correct jaw is installed. And this is great too if you have more than one person using the machine. Let's say you use it, you leave, you come back, one of your employees is using the machine, and it will go through and kind of make sure that everything is okay to go before it continues. And the problem with cutting the key with not having the shield is we're getting a little bit more chips everywhere than we normally would. And when it's done cutting that side of the key, it's going to tell you to flip the key 180 degrees. And I always want to make sure that this guy is clean before you do so. I always kind of brush it on top first, and then I take out the key to flip it. And after I take out the key, I kind of brush it a little bit more to make sure we have all those chips off of that U-jaw. Reinsert the key. Oh, there we go. Reinsert the key so that the other side. Okay. Tighten it down in the jaw. Make sure that you can't move that jaw or that key in there. And then hit cut again on the console. Yeah. When you flip the key for the second side, it's just going to assume that you didn't move the jaw out of the way and you didn't change the tracer or the cutter. So it's just going to gauge where that key is at to kind of save some time. All right, so after it's done, once again, you brush the chips. What we have here is a brand new Honda key. Now, let's say we know that we clean off the screen a little bit. Now let's say we know the code of the key and we want to cut it on the machine. Okay, let's go back to the main menu. You can either do the process I showed you before, which was going to select the vehicle and then select code and directly type in the code. Or you can go from the main menu, you can select codes and type in the codes from there. So let's try a Toyota key this time. I'm just going to do like 55095. I'm going to select the Toyota 10 cut. Here we go. That one will work. I'll select next. It'll give the same profile and everything like it did before. So then you hit next, and it's going to go directly to that cut screen. You can see that it wants you on the U1, a different spot on the jaw. But once again, if it's a little further back or a little past that line, it really doesn't matter because it's going to gauge the key where it's at and make it really, really user-friendly that way. So let's go back to, here we go. And I typed in the code already, so I'm going to insert my Toyota blank right here into the jaw to the U1 position. Make sure it's tight in there. And then I'm going to hit cut. Now it's going to go through and it's going to gauge to make sure that the jaw is installed, tracer and cutter is at the right height, and where the key is at once again. So I see What's included with the machine when you purchase the machine is the machine, that console, the power cables, a toolkit and the manual, and of course the U-jaw. We do have a bracket that you can purchase if in case you want to mount it in your vehicle, if you would like a bracket. We also have the V-jaw in case you want to do the Volkswagen, Audi, or those four-sided keys. You do not need any adapters for this machine. It does have a Z-axis, so it goes up and down. So you don't need like a 80,000 code series adapter. We are working on what's called a M-jaw that will do residential keys in the near future. We're also working on a H-jaw for the Gymkana 994 as well. I'll cut 6-cut ticket keys. So. Yeah, code is super, super easy. You just type it in, and there you go. You got your key cut. And it should be good to go. All right, so before I showed you, you had 4 options here. We did a decode. We cut by code. We also have direct and modify. If you're familiar with our software, you kind of know what that is. But in case you are not, you have direct. Direct, what you can do is you can directly type in the cuts. And the machine will cut the key based on those cuts that you put in. Also, if you want, you can also hit find codes. I find that super, super easy to see if there's codes that will match the key cuts that you put in. And if you don't know a certain cut, you can do what I do and put question marks. And it's going to tell you, see, code not found. The cuts that I have put in here don't match any sort of code series. The other one option that you have is the modify. This is where you get into super, super tricky territory. If you hit modify, you can change it to half cuts, change the depth of cut, percentage. It's a really, really kind of cool feature, and you can kind of play with that and kind of give you some more options. We also have the star button up here. What the star does, if I press it, it saves it to favorites. So let's say you cut that key all the time. You can save it to your favorites, and when you go to the main menu, you got your favorites option right here. You just select it and select your favorites. Yeah, from there we got key blanks, we got archive, we got setup. Let's see here. I'm looking at the questions. I don't have an HU92 keyway in front of me or behind me. As long as the BMW key isn't aluminum, it shouldn't have a problem. If you have aluminum keys, the cutter spins too fast, and it'll actually physically melt that key when you try to cut it. Unfortunately, our cutters are a little too strong for those aluminum plastic keys that some HU92s are. Someone's asking to see the console, so I'll just kind of push this to show it up here. This is what the console looks like. You can actually comes with a bracket where you can mount it on top to have it out of the way. Or you can have a set spot on your workbench to have the console, as long as I highly suggest that you secure it either with the bracket or some sort of mechanism. It's not difficult at all to change out the jaws. As I showed you before with the set screw, let me kind of move in a little bit closer. There we go. So if you look, you can kind of see that set screw to change out jaws. I actually have a V jaw right here. So what you do is you loosen the set screw. It slides out. Then you take a V jaw. Let me see if I can show the camera here. Take your V jaw. And you just slide that into the left as far as it can go, and then lock it down. Make sure it doesn't move. It's as easy as that. And when you go through to cut one of those keys, it's actually going to physically tell you to change out the jaw. For the meantime, I'm going to take this guy out and reinstall the U-jaw. And if you have questions, feel free to use that Q&A type in those questions. That way I can kind of gauge something that you might have right away. I should have access to it. But some other things, some common questions that I get whenever I take a tech phone call is, do you have to calibrate the Gymkana every time you change out a cutter or the jaw? You don't have to calibrate the machine whenever you change out the cutter, the V037 cutter. For the tracer, all you have to do instead of calibrating is to do a tracer adjustment, and it should be okay. At that point, though, if you do a tracer adjustment, you can always just go through jaw setup and recalibrate the jaw if you want to be super safe. But for me, anyway, I usually just do a tracer adjustment where that tracer lands to make sure it's at the right height. You should be good to go to fire away. We do have a vacuum attachment that's coming out soon. It's going to actually attach right here, and if you can see this little silver piece, it's actually going to pop up through here. Eventually, we will have that available. We're still kind of working out the kinks. But if you are interested, you can always contact us or your distributor, and we'll have more information from you or for you. Once again, if you want to see like kind of a in-depth calibration, we do have a YouTube video that came out about 2 weeks ago that will kind of zoom in and go through step by step on what you need to do to calibrate. I think calibration is going to focus a lot on that screen, and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to see what I'm pointing at. The YouTube video is probably 10 times easier for you. A warranty on the Gymkana, it's 2-year warranty. You also get 2 years of free software updates, software subscription. Our tech support is Eastern Coast time, 8 to 5. We pride ourselves on our tech support. Usually when you call in, you'll get someone right away. If not, that means we are incredibly busy, and we usually call you back within the hour. We are 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Software updates, we have free software updates, but if it's over 2 years old, you're going to have to purchase a subscription. I think this is a great and easy machine. It's supposed to be quieter and a lot user-friendly. It's an upgraded version of the 994, where you have the 994, you had to change out the cutters and the tracers and the jaws. This tries to eliminate that as much as possible. Yeah, so let me see if we have any more questions here on the Q&A. How do you know the height to adjust the tracer knob? When you go through tracer adjustment, the tracer will physically land on the calibration template. I can actually, let me see if I can show you that. So let's say someone touched the knob. We do have a sticker right there that says do not touch it. To easily adjust the tracer knob, all you need to do is you need to install the calibration template. There we go. Install the calibration template into the jaw as far as it can go and lock it down. And then loosen this tracer knob and lift it and put it up to the right so that that tracer is out of the way. Then you just go to your console and go to Setup Calibrations Tracer Adjustment. Hit Start. Change the camera so you can kind of see it a little bit better. There we go. It's essentially the cutter will touch the top part of that calibration template, and then you just move this tracer knob over and drop it down so it lands on top of the template. You just tighten it down like so. And then you hit OK. It's as easy as that. So you don't need any adapters for the machine. It does have a Z-axis, as you just saw. It does go up, down. So you don't need an adapter for like an 80,000 code series key, infinity key, certain motorcycles. It'll essentially take care of that for you. Honda high security keys will not work on the first time. We need to cut it twice. Any reason for that? It depends how old your Honda key is. Most Honda keys are very, very tricky, which is why we use those as the test keys when we send out the machine to make sure that they work. I would suggest if you have to cut the Honda key twice, which you shouldn't, if you have to cut it twice, are you doing it by code or by decode? And also, I would brush with a metal brush those Honda keys for those older Hondas so they slide in a little bit easier. Most Honda keys, have you ever, let me see, zoom in here. Most Honda keys, this bottom cut right here will be the worn cut, which is usually your troublemaker with a lot of Honda keys. You also want to look to see and make sure that you probably can't tell from the camera, but that makes a perfect, perfect plus symbol. Yeah, it's a little hard to see there, but as long as it has a perfect plus symbol, you know that that key's a-okay to go. How many cuts can you get out of the cutter before you have to change it? Great question. We say that it will cut about 120 keys on the machine. However, I have seen cutters that have lasted well over 300 keys. It just depends on the material that the keys that the cutter is cutting and the type of keys that you're cutting. How long does it take to start? It does have a newer style board that came out, I want to say about a year ago. Yeah, a year ago, the new style board, which will take under a minute when it boots up. Christopher Brown says, I live in California and the temperature vary a lot from morning and afternoon. The accuracy is so good I have to recalibrate the Z all the time. Is there newer software that counters this? I would highly suggest that definitely I would check out the software. The newest version should be 3.021. If you haven't updated, I would update it. If it's having trouble with the Z axis, that would be the up-down function. I would almost make sure that this tracer knob doesn't move up-down at all. If you need a spare tracer shaft, let's say, or if we could diagnose that over the phone, feel free to give us a call and we can kind of go through on there. The software will show you how to have the key positioned in the U-jaw. So let's say it's a little bit of an out there key. Let's say it's one of those Mazda shoulder stop keys. You can actually, it does come with a tip stop. You don't really need it, but it's there just for those shoulder stop keys. Let me see if I can kind of get this jaw out so I can kind of show you where to place that. If you look here, you'll see a little groove, wrong side, a little groove that kind of goes right here and goes all the way across the jaw. You put the tip stop there and it'll show you on the screen. It'll show you a red line. You have that shoulder come up against that tip stop and lock it down. You don't need the tip stop, but we had people requesting it, so we kind of added it to this U-jaw, and it makes it easier for those styles of keys. How often do you need to calibrate the machine if it's mounted into your van? I'd ask you this, do you travel with the machine on or off? If you go through a very bumpy road, it'd probably be a good idea to calibrate it, but you shouldn't have to calibrate it whenever you use it. You should only have to calibrate it. If it's in your van, I would say a little more than once a month, but it should be okay. Let's see. How often can or should the machine be updated during a year? We have updates that come out once every couple of months. And if you bought it within 2 years, feel free to update it whenever you want. I would say once every couple of months, just so you get those new keyways. You don't need a subscription for the 884. Those updates are available. It's just key cutting machines. Yeah, as long as you brush off the chips before you cut or decode the key, you should be okay. Yeah, I would say just as a general, as long as this guy is clean up top, as long as you don't have any chips on your tracer, it should work fine for you. You always kind of want to use a key cutting machine anyway while it's clean and don't have any chips out of the way, especially when you're decoding a key. Because if you have a chip in there, it's going to read the chip and not the key. How do you know when you need the cutter to be changed? You will know. The keys won't be cut as clean as they should be. You'll kind of look at the keys and they should be sharp and very precise. If the edges are a little rugged, I would check the bottom of your cutter and make sure for those V037 cutters to make sure it has 2 flutes at the bottom of your cutter. That way you know that it's doing good. I've actually known people that use a magnifying glass to kind of make sure that they have points at the bottom of their cutter. But you'll know, it'll be very apparent based on how you cut the keys. So you decode a Honda key and it does not give you a code. What do you do? If you see right up here, you will see that code section is blank. Let's see, there's my stylus. You'll see right here that that code section is blank, and it gives you all these cuts, and but you know that it's not working. If you look at the key after you decode it, you can usually compare it on the screen based on the cuts that it read. But let's say this is an older key, 9 times out of 10, it's this cut right here. You see where it has a 2? If you change that to a 1 and hit find codes, it'll usually give you a code. If that's not the case, I can always select that code. I can make it a question mark and hit find codes. It'll give me a list of all those codes based on the question mark value. Also make sure when you're selecting the code series that it's either master or valet. Valet is not going to work on master codes and vice versa. Master is not going to work on valet. You have to be very specific when you set a code series. Let me go back. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but we're trying our best here. The top plate, you really shouldn't have to change the top plate on the U-jaw or the V-jaw. The cutter, as long as it's tight in the machine, it's not going to drop down. And in fact, it measures it before it even cuts the key. So if it cut into your top plate, it means that someone didn't tighten down the cutter. Where does it show how many keys were cut? All right, so let's go back to this console screen real quick. Go press that home button. It takes you to the main menu. I know it's difficult to see, but if you go to setup and then you go to utility and then you go to statistics, it is going to tell you how many keys were cut total on the machine. You can also look up key history as well. It'll show you all the different keys that you've cut on the machine, dates and time. Yeah, I selected a key by accident. It's a little hard doing this. I actually have this upside down, so it's a little difficult for me to kind of find different options here for y'all. So yeah, it's essentially how I can see that. There you got stats, and you also got key history that'll show you how many times you cut a key. Let me change the camera. How does it handle RAM ProMaster keys that the cuts are inverted, cut into the blade instead of the side? That 4-sided key I was talking about earlier, Chris. Yes, it can cut those. I know it can because I've cut a ProMaster 4-sided cut on this machine. Dave, for the answer, can this machine be controlled by a laptop, computer, or other tablet? Yes. If you have it directly connected to your laptop, I do know you can do it. It does take a lot of steps with an Ethernet cable. Yeah, it's up to you for preference. We can always walk you through that. I prefer the console myself. But that's just me. So yes, short answer, yes, you can. How to clean the key shavings from the bottom of the machine? Is there a drawer that pulls out to empty? Right there. Yeah, the chip tray is kind of designed into it. It's kind of a cool trick we kind of threw in there. For remote help, you can call the tech line. Some of us have the ability to FaceTime. Hopefully we'll have more of us be able to do that in the future. We're working on it. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, and we'll help you out as best we can. There's also videos that we can show you too, like the location specifically, because I don't have them memorized off the top of my head. But you can see them on keyline-usa.com. You can also Google them. And they're somewhere on YouTube because I've done that before too. And decoding kind of forward, high security key would only turn in the door to unlock and not lock. Did work in the ignition with a little catch. What should I do? In that case, I would give the tech support a call. We'd probably want to see pictures of the key, and we'll probably be able to tell you from looking at the key what exactly is going on. Good question, though, Keith. Unfortunately, you won't be able to disable getting the shield off. That's a safety feature. We can't, like, liability-wise, we cannot have our customers cutting keys with the shield off because we have an open spinning blade, and technically that's just problems waiting to happen. What keys won't the unit cut? It won't cut residential keys at the moment until you purchase a M-jaw. You can cut Tibby keys on this. Eventually, it'll be a new feature on the H-jaw. Look into that information more so in the future. I find it's much harder to tighten the jaw now. Sometimes it gets loose. What can it be? I would say it would have to be your set screw going into the carriage. I would actually physically take that out, make sure there's no damage to it because that set screw presses against a plate against the jaw. I would also give a call in for that as well because once you tighten the set screw, you shouldn't be able to move the jaw. And if you can, it sounds like something that we need to take care of. If we have two cars from the same make, model, and year, is the key cut the same? No. If the code is the same, won't there be two people with the same key? Yes, that's key is, if the code is the same, won't there be two people with the same key? Correct. Yeah, I mean, that's very, very rare, but I have seen that happen. Yeah, if there's 10,000, like a good example is if there's 10,000 codes, like let's say we have a code series that is 1 to 10,000, it'll apply to like 100,000 vehicles. It's kind of to get the gauge of where code series are. Carbide cutter option. I think our cutters are carbide steel, if I off the top of my head. Good question so far, everyone. This is our first one, so we'll be learning a lot more from doing this. Hopefully we can do more in the future on some of our different other machines, but thanks for participating in our very first webinar. Actually, this was a lot of fun. It was kind of cool having the questions kind of pop up as I was demonstrating the machine to everyone. It's kind of, in these times, it's a great way to kind of, I can't see you guys, and I can't hear you guys, but I can definitely see all the feedback and everything. But if you, once again, if you have more questions, feel free to give us a call on our tech support line. We'll be happy to address them and happy to help you out with any sort of issues. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Stay safe. Have a good day.